So today I am taking our dog SayJay. She's a 10-year-old lab to the vet. Last night, when I went to let her outside before bed, it became apparent that she can't see. So she's basically blind right now. And I don't know what's going on. So we are on our way to the vet. All right, so man's best friend. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Dogs and dog ownership. Dog ownership is something special. We get these animals and they become quickly a part of our family. And their loyalty in many ways is unmatched. I mean, even by humans, most humans can't, even compare to the loyalty of some dogs. And so, for that reason, they are very special and they hold a special place in our homes and our families. And in the beginning stages, when you're considering getting a dog and all the fun things around that, picking the dog out, deciding the name, going on the trip to go get the dog, bringing the dog home, getting the dog acquainted with being in the house and trying to teach it its understanding and its place in the hierarchy of your family. All of these things, there's just a lot of positive, happy emotions that come along with those things in the beginning, when you decide to become a dog owner. But I don't think we often look out into the future at all the responsibilities and implications of what comes with owning a dog. And I really think that we should. We should really know what we are signing up for. Because although in the beginning stages there are all these fun things, with the exception of going to the bathroom in the house and chewing on things, for the most part, everything's all, fine and dandy in the beginning. But there will always come this time. And so we really need to be aware of that when we sign up for this and when we get into this. And we need to make that commitment that we understand what is in the future when it comes to owning pets in general. Dogs more specifically here today, because that's what my family is. My family are dog lovers. We've had dogs for the better part of 25 years now. And we are on our, I believe, fifth dog. And for me, I have always been just obsessed with St. Bernards. When I was in high school, I seen my first St. Bernard in person and I was just amazed at the breed. I mean, they were just a magnificent specimen of a dog. And I immediately wanted one. And I knew that as soon as I was able, it was going to be one of the very first things I did when I was out on my own. And so that's what I did, after a little while of being out on my own and having my own place. I went and got my very first St. Bernard, and his name was Bailey. And he was a crazy dog, and we had a lot of good times together. But with those very large breed dogs like that, you get a smaller time with them. Their lifespan is, you're lucky to get 10 years. And with Samson or with Bailey, it was, we almost got that with him. He was 9.5 years old when he ended up having a cancerous tumor, and I was taking him to the vet to have it removed. He was in the procedure, and I was willing to pay, even though he was 9.5, and I might only get another 6 months out of him. I could not bear the thought of letting him go. And so I was willing to spend whatever amount of money it took to get him fixed up that day. And that's what I was there to do. But as he was laying on the operating table, the vet came out to inform me that once she had opened him up, the cancer was all through him, and there was no way possible to get it all. And she told me that the best thing to do at this point would to be not to wake him up from the anesthesia. And I was immediately heartbroken. I mean, to say the least, I couldn't even believe it because I was under the understanding he was coming back home with me. Maybe not that day, but in a few days he'd be coming back home. And now here I am having to make this decision to let him go. And at that time, it was one of the hardest things that I had ever been through. It was absolutely devastating, and I was crushed. He was my boy, and with him, I had him when I was a bachelor in the beginning stages, and it was just he and I for, a couple years, and until I had met my current wife, girlfriend at the time, and we, had a daughter, and so then he had to get acquainted with these other people. But for a long time it was just he and I, and he was my boy, my very first dog of my own. And it was terrible, and I told myself following that I will never go through that again. It was that bad. And what ends up happening though is that when you get home, there is an obvious void present in the house. And when you have a large breed like that, when they are in the room, their presence is absolutely known. I mean, their tails knocking things over, there's slobber all over the place. There's hairballs rolling across your floor like tumbleweeds. I mean, when they're not there, there's a big hole that's there in their place. And so it hurts, and you end up deciding to get another one so that it helps to deal with and to cope with that pain. And so that's what we did. And our second dog was Chopper, and he was an Italian Mastiff, another large breed dog. And we got likewise another 9.5, I think, years, 9.5 years out of Chopper. When his organs began to fail, and he was having all kinds of he was just in a lot of pain towards the end there. And so it became a lot, well, I wouldn't say it was easy, but it was easier to let go of him because of witnessing him in this immense amount of pain. And so to continue allowing him to stay in that just for your own, you know, needs is very selfish, and we had to decide to let him go, and it was very difficult. Always is. But while we had Chopper, we also ended up getting our second Saint Bernard, which his name was Oakland, and we had him for, and it wasn't too long after getting Chopper. I think Chopper was probably 4 or 5 years old when we got Oakland. But with Oakland, we only got 5 years with him, and that's because he ended up having kidney failure. And so we lost him at an early, if 5 years, you're expecting, another, he's only halfway through his life. You're expecting another 5 years, and now here we are dealing with this. So had to, again, let him go. And each time, these things just absolutely crush you, right to your core. Because in many ways they're part of your family. They're a family member. They're like one of your children, and for your children they're like a sibling. And it's just very difficult to go through. And I don't think, at least I know that I didn't, in the beginning stages of considering getting a dog, that we often think of these things and that we consider what lies ahead in the future. Because, the saying, all good things will eventually come to an end. And this is no different. That end will come. And so you have to be, um, cognizant of that and aware of it and knowing what you're signing up for when you get into this because it's very, very difficult. And I say all that just to kind of build up to where we are at today. Now we have Samson, our third St. Bernard, which he is now about 5 years old. And we have SayJay, our Yellow Lab. And we got SayJay after we had lost Chopper in Oakland. We took a break for a while, but again, just couldn't stand the void in the home. And at that time, we had two of our young boys. I think Rockland was one and Braden was 3 or 4. And so we wanted them to also grow up with dogs because it had always been that way. And with our daughter, and, you know, they were there in the beginning, at the end stages of Chopper in Oakland, and so we wanted them to also grow up with pets like this, and so we decided to get a lab this time instead of a big, large, extra large breed dog. And so we got SayJay, and SayJay, I remember I found the ad in the paper, the local bargain sheet, it's called. And I seen an ad for some puppies that was about an hour away from us. And so we loaded up in the car that day, my wife and my two boys and my daughter, and we went off to go over to get one of these lab pups. And I've always been a male dog kind of guy. Like I just always wanted males for some reason. And so that was my intent to go there and get a male yellow lab that day. But when we got there, there were a few yellow. I think there was one yellow, two black, and two brown labs. And it just so happened that the brown and black labs were the only ones that were males. The female was the yellow lab. And I was pretty dead set on a yellow lab. And my family fell in love with her right away. And so we came home with SayJay that day, our first female dog. And she has proven to be the absolute best dog we've ever had. Is still an amazing dog. I mean, just an absolute blessing of a dog. She's just fabulous in many ways. And in our house now today, she is the matriarch of the household. And she's like our queen, and we love her dearly. And last week, something happened. Now, SayJay, if I hadn't mentioned yet, she is 10 years old, so we know that she's getting up there in years, but she was still doing pretty good, it seemed like, until last week. And it was Wednesday evening when I went to let her out. I had called to her, and it was like right before bed. It was late, and I called to her, and she got up, and I could tell she seemed confused, and she got up and walked directly into the wall. So I knew immediately, like, something's not right here. Like, my heart dropped, but I was able to direct her and get her outside, and I watched her while she was out there. And when she was done, I had called her to come back to the house because she started to walk away. And when she did come back, she ran directly into the car. So it was clearly evident that she was completely blind, could not see at all. And so then my heart dropped. And I picked her up and carried her back in the house. And I just sat on the floor with her and sat there with her and comforted her because she was anxious and didn't know what was going on. And I'm likewise anxious and not knowing what's going on. And so I just sat with her. And the next day, I called the vet first thing in the morning. told them what was going on, and they asked if I could drop her off for a few hours, so I did. And we live way out on a mountain, and so anytime I'm in town, I try to run errands while I'm there to try and kill as many birds with one stone as I can. And so that's what I was doing. I was in the grocery store gathering a few groceries up when the vet had called to inform me the bad news that SayJay was diagnosed with lymphoma, which is an very aggressive cancer. And it was in her neck, in her lymph nodes, and it had spread into her eyes, causing the blindness. So, was devastated at the news. Even though I knew that it wasn't good, I just was not expecting that. Because you never do expect this. Like you just don't. I don't know if it's naivety or if you just don't allow yourself to go there. But I knew that there was something wrong, but I just didn't allow myself to consider that. And so it hit me like a ton of bricks when she said those words. And she told me a few of the options, but it wasn't, was not good. And that was to put her on a steroid that would help possibly bring down some of the inflammation and help, give her some comfort. And that we could do x-rays to try and see how far it had spread, to see if it was in her. She wanted to do an x-ray of her stomach and of her chest to see if it had gotten into her stomach and lungs. And then she had mentioned chemotherapy, but SayJay being at this age, it's just not really something that we want to put her and her body through, because she is at this stage 10 and a half years old, and I don't know. So we decided on the steroids, obviously, to get that rolling and to go ahead with the x-rays. And when I got to the vet to pick her up, they told me that the x-rays showed that they weren't seeing it in her stomach and in her lungs yet, but that her spleen was enlarged, and they warned me that it could burst at any time. And if that happened, it would be, a medical emergency, basically the end, probably, especially being out this far and just with the situation the way it was. And so, yeah, just crushed once again. Here we are. And so I loaded her up in the car, and we were on our way home. And I was considering all of these things. And that's why I decided to make this video. Because we don't consider this when we do this in the beginning stages. We're only thinking about the puppy and all the cute, good things that come with it in the beginning. We don't look this far out and understand what it is that we're actually getting ourselves into. And I think that we do need to consider that, and we need to know for sure what we are signing up for. And this is absolutely part of it. You will someday, as a dog owner, be in this very spot. And it's extremely difficult. Right now, SayJay is doing a lot better. She's regained her eyesight. I have switched her onto a complete homemade, full high protein diet. Like, stopped the dog food and just, I made her a combination of a bunch of different stuff that I had here, organic meats and just different things, and some vegetables and rice, and just made a big batch of high protein. The ratio is like 65 to 25 to 10 of protein, vegetables, carbs. And I don't know if that is contributing to it, but she seems to be like doing pretty good, actually. We weren't sure if it would be a matter of days or what we were looking at. But she seems to be doing better, and she has got her eyesight back, which is a huge blessing, because that is very difficult to deal with. Trying to let them out and deal with that, just it's a nightmare, as you can imagine. And so we're blessed to have gotten her eyesight back. But that's where we're at, and the constant thought is now lingering that the day is going to come here when she is no longer going to be in this house. And that is something that I am struggling with. very badly. We all are. And, we've been babying her and just pampering her and doing everything we can. I mean, I literally had chicken feet from when we butchered our own chickens the one year. We raised meat chickens, and when I processed them, I kept all the chicken feet and the chicken hearts and livers and everything in separate bags, and we don't eat those things, but I kept a hold of them, and I'm glad I did because I ended up breaking those out, and I'm sitting there clipping, the toenails off of these damn chicken feet. But I would literally do anything for her at this point to try and prolong her life. And so that's what we were doing. And I was dehydrating liver strips that I had cut for her, and just all these, trying to just get her as much healthy food as possible into her to try and starve that cancer. And hopefully that's working. Like I said, she seems to be doing better, but that's where we're at. And it's just a gloomy situation because, like, you just know what's coming. And each day, I swear, as soon as I open my eyes, it's the very first thing that comes to my mind. And it sucks. And I just think that if we're going to be getting into this, we need to know what we're signing up for. And so that's why I decided to make this video. And like I was saying, as I was bringing her home last week and I was contemplating all this, I was thinking those thoughts once again. Here we go again, going through all this pain, losing your dog. Like, why do we do this? Why do we put ourselves through this? But I realized as I began to ponder on the last 10 years with SayJay that I would not have traded those 10 years to not have to go through this at this time. And so to me, it was worth it. But that's the decision that you need to consider and that you need to make. Is it worth it? Is it worth putting yourself through this? Because this will come to all pet owners eventually. And so it's just something that I think we should all consider. And you don't want to be considering it when you're up against it. You want to consider it when you're considering getting into owning a dog. And so that's the message here today. Like I said, I know it's a little bit heavy, but again, there's so many people out there that are dog owners or that are considering getting into dog ownership. And I just think it's critical that we consider all of these things when we're making that decision. And so hopefully I've helped you with that here today. Anyway, I am Brad Casper. This is Casper's Corner, and until the next one, we're out.